don't think anyone can deny that Scott the Miniature Maniac makes a bloody good YouTube video. Scrolling his channel is like a YouTube's greatest hits of mini painting bangers. However, there's one particular video that he made recently that's so inspiring and such an unbelievably fun concept that I had to have a go at doing my own take on it. The 10 minutes, 1 hour, 10 hours challenge is such a fun concept, and it's a really interesting way to make a practical exercise based around the thought process of painting a mini. But I think I might be able to lend something else to the discussion. If you're a regular here, you'll be aware that I love a speed paint, and I spend a lot of my time here on YouTube trying to demonstrate low stress, high yield painting techniques. My hope is that this position can allow me to approach this challenge in a similar spirit, but from a totally different perspective. So in order to encourage this outcome, I decided to paint these Eternal Dynasty warriors from One Page Rules in 15 minutes, 90 minutes, and 3 hours. Unlike Scott's video, you'll notice that they are slightly different poses but the same sculpt. Full disclosure, this video is also an excuse for me to work on my Stargrave crew some more. So yeah, I don't want any repeat poses, seeing as it is only a 10-man crew. Much like Scott though, I'll allow myself a preparatory stage off the clock, but I'll be priming all of my guys in Vallejo model colour Cavalry Brown. My scheme being red and yellow, this is an ideal base coat for both main colours and will give me the best fighting chance on that 15-minute model. One other noteworthy point is that I've prepped my wet palette with every colour I'm certain I'll want to use during the process. This is mostly just a stress dampener, but it also helps me stay focused on the colour design that I'm looking for. So let's get on with that 15-minute mini. I know that, being realistic, I can only hope for base coats here at best. So I decided the smart approach was to just try and get as many of the base coats done as possible with as few mistakes as possible. As such, no big brush blocking in here, just straight to my main workhorse brush and getting colour in there. Things like the blue skin were a fairly high priority to me because at least that's a pop colour which stands a really good chance of making the scheme look good in not too much time. But outside of that, I just want the main colours of the scheme represented on the model really, doing my best to at least get them down even if not the tidiest or most interesting renderings of them. I even found time at the last minute for a little, very rough highlighting. But I made it. It's a 15-minute mini. So, how does it look? Well, honestly, not bad at all, really, all considered. The blacks need highlighting, the cloth putties on the legs need another stage or two of colour. But all in all, for army level painting, you probably wouldn't hate seeing a bunch of these. The thing is though, I'm not looking for a bunch. I want a Stargrave crew. So let's try that 90-minute boy instead. 90 minutes, as you will indeed know if you watch my series 90-minute mechs, is a time limit I'm pretty comfortable with. In fact, it's a time limit I really enjoy as a nice middle ground between quick and pretty. So let's look at what I can do to make this one work for me. After another initial phase of blocking out base coats, I now want to start to build up my yellow tone straight away and get a really nice looking yellow armour. That's my priority. I think with the time constraints, a bunch of blending is probably still out of the question, so instead I opt to stipple here, with lots of very fine dots and dashes of colour. This really makes the decision to preload my palette pay off, as all of my steps for the yellow are right there waiting for me. The really great thing about this stippling technique is that it really only takes a few seconds for the build up to start to look nice. Whilst there's not any smoothness here to speak of, smoothness doesn't have to be the goal, and texture is a really interesting and artistic thing to lean into. After 3 quick passes over my base coat, I have something that looks really nice. I'm actually now considering using this method for the 3-hour approach too. However, the downside to this is that getting the reds and yellows looking good has eaten most of my time, forcing me to rush the rest of the areas on the mini. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. In the context of a 90-minute mini, I often preach that one of the best things you can do is show off on just one major part, and then kind of just get the rest done as good as you can in the time left. In this case, it mostly works out to mean a quick zip around of superficial edge highlighting for the majority of the rest of my guy here. Once again, the net result is something pretty awesome considering the time, and it gives some handy signposts as to what can be achieved with a bigger time budget. I actually rather like everything going on here. I think with double the time, my main focus should be on refinement, both mechanical in the quality of my strokes, but also artistically in things like my contrasts of value and texture. Speaking of which, for my 3 hour piece, I'm actually going to start with a wash of Agrax Earthshade, pretty much all over the Mini. You might find it kind of strange that I didn't bring a wash into the equation until now, but it's actually the extra time allowance that means I can both wait for that wash to dry a little without risking the hairdryer blowing it around too much, but also it lets me start re-base coating from Cavalry Brown, meaning I can bring in an extra stage of value contrast in both the yellow and red. On the subject of hairdryers briefly, I need to give them a shout out here as well. For £5 to £10 you can grab one of these things, and I honestly think we should just be considering it standard hobby gear at this stage. It can be used to straighten plastic or resin minis, it can be used to dry paints in a hurry. So going back to our 3 hour boy, I'm skipping ahead somewhat to a point where I'm at what would have been the first highlight stage on the previous version. With the addition of that Agrax wash lower in the bottom end, you can really see now how much brighter these early highlights look already. And from there I make the decision to just stick with this stippling method, but being more careful, more refined in how I apply my strokes. Continuing this approach through the yellow, the red, and even the black elements allows me to create a really consistent, deliberate look with all these little dots and dashes. As a side effect of my desire to create this consistent look, I did find I burned a lot of time on that stipple work, but that said, I also completed 80% of the Mini. I think with just a few details such as some leather straps, a nicely painted gun, we can wrap this up within the time limit and be very happy. So that's exactly what I spent the last of my time on. I had about half an hour, but using the same speed approach of staying precise as possible, but not being too concerned with blending, lets me get some nice effects with minimal headache, and not that much time at all really. And after my 3 hours were up, I actually really like my 3 hour Mini. It's painted in a style that I'm both comfortable with and know my way around. It wasn't stressful to work on despite the time frame, but most importantly, I absolutely love how it looks. So before we look at the side-by-sides, there's one important question I probably need to answer. Why change the challenge in the first place? Why not stick to Scott's 10 minutes, 1 hour, 10 hours like he did in his original video? And the answer really comes from one of my prime philosophies as a person who likes to share their experiences on the internet. I think the real secret to achieving amazing things within any kind of time limit is to be comfortable with the processes you're using. So as we look at the side-by-sides now, it's really rewarding to be able to see how that comfort and familiarity in painting with texture and focusing on contrast can create something passable at each level. As a bonus, here's another model from my Stargrave crew, painted in the same style, but in about 5 or 6 hours and without really paying attention to the clock. However, of the 3 warriors, which one do you think gives the most bang for the buck? 15, 90, or 3 hours? I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, of course, please do hit that like button and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. I'd like to give special thanks to Scott the Miniature Maniac for the idea for this video and for being a constant source of inspiration. If you want to support the channel, remember that you can do so in a whole bunch of ways detailed in the links below the video, including my Patreon, which starts from just a mere £1 a month. Until the next one, folks, thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye for now.